Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Greg sent me a story out of Florida. It's a crazy one involving the police and two different departments from WFTV.com. And it's a short story. It's a short story, but it's an interesting one. Orlando police officer accused of reckless driving and fleeing a traffic stop in his patrol cruiser. And if you go online, you can find the video. It's very, very short. But this police car goes blowing by another cop car. So the cop car is on the side of the road, pulls up behind the guy, and gets him to pull over. And hilarity ensues. So from Seminole County, Florida, an Orlando police officer is off the job, after Seminole County deputy said he's clocked driving 82 in a 45 in his police cruiser, and then fled a traffic stop. So the police officer pulls over the other officer, says, "What's going on?" And the officer who was speeding goes, "Dude, I'm going to work." Just gets back in his car and leaves. And it's actually a little bit worse than that. Dash cam footage captured when the deputies say the officer sped by a Seminole County deputy on Florida Avenue Friday afternoon. What's important to notice immediately here is we're talking about a city cop and a county sheriff officer. And those are different departments. And so while quite often police might extend courtesy to others within their own force, there is sometimes a lack of that when it comes to the county versus the locals or the state versus the county. According to the arrest report, the deputy said that the OPD cruiser had no lights or sirens activated, but was just doing 82 in a 45. When the deputy caught up with the officer, deputy said the officer didn't stop and passed cars to evade the deputy. Eventually, the deputy got him to stop at the intersection of State Road 434 and Hammock Lane. And body camera footage then captures the conversation where the officer appears to be irritated and doesn't like being questioned. When asked why he was speeding, he says, "What? I'm going into work, my man. Why are you trying to pull me over as I'm going into work? I'm going into work, my man." In the footage, when asked for his driver's license, the officer says no, just gets back in his cruiser and takes off. No. Can you imagine you get pulled over by the police because you're doing 82 in a 45? The officer says, "Can I see your driver's license?" No. You get back in your car and drive away. I'm sure that would end well. I'm tempted to have the word sarcasm pop up on the screen when I say things like that. So the officer is charged with resisting an officer, reckless driving, and fleeing and eluding a law enforcement officer. Now, he did turn himself in on Friday to the Seminole County Jail and was released on a $9,000 bond. Orlando police said he has been relieved of his duties pending the Seminole County Sheriff's Office criminal investigation, as well as Orlando Police's internal affairs investigation. So he's being investigated twice, and he's been relieved of his duties. Does not say if he's getting paid, because I recently talked about a police officer who got in trouble, and pending the investigation, he was on paid administrative leave. And so this is a strange one, because the body camera footage that the deputy had on him is so clear. And the guy steps out of the vehicle, and he's head to toe, full regalia of being a police officer. And he says, "What? I'm going into work, my man. Why are you trying to pull me over as I'm going into work?" Now, interestingly, he assumes that the sheriff's deputy can tell that he was going into work. That's why he's doing 82 and a 45 with no lights or sirens. And you really wonder about that. But like I said, I've watched a lot of videos on YouTube, and there's a couple different themes that I've spent time watching. And some of the police chase ones are fascinating because they've got all these cameras now that capture everything that happens in a police chase. And so it's a high-speed chase, but it's real life, so it adds a little more of an element of excitement to it than you might get in a police chase in, I don't know, a Fast and Furious movie. And I've seen it before in Florida, believe it or not, where a local police officer sees another officer just go blowing by, and there's nothing going on. It's just the officer appears to be using their lights or sirens or just their car without lights or sirens just to go someplace fast, knowing who's going to pull over a cop. And I've seen a police officer attempt to pull over another cop who decided not to pull over. It's like, I'm a cop too. So see, if a cop goes to pull over a civilian, the civilian's got to stop. But if a cop goes to pull over another cop, well, that cop's got to. So it's like we're even here. We're even here. And so no. And the thing is that laws apply to all of us. And I know that sometimes there are people who think, oh, the laws don't apply to me. And we've heard the stories, politicians, judges, cops, whatever, who pull the old thing at the side of the road about, hey, I'm an officer too, cut me some professional slack here. And one of my favorite ones is it happened in Michigan, up north in Michigan, where a guy gets pulled over in the middle of the afternoon because people had called in saying, I think there's a guy who's drunk, he's weaving around. And a police officer actually finds the guy still on the road and witnesses the bad driving, and so pulls the guy over. And the guy pulls the old, I'm a police officer, I'm on vacation, but I'm not wearing my outfit right now, and I'm not in a police car, but I'm an officer, can I have some slack here? And the guy is just drunk. And it's like, dude, you're drinking this hard in the afternoon? There's something about being drunk during daylight hours, okay? But it's worse when you're behind the wheel of a car. It's worse. So here, there's no allegations of alcohol. It's just the fact that the guy is doing 82 and a 45. Now, you wonder what would have happened if the officer pulled over and politely said, you know something, I'm in a hurry. And yeah, I was speeding. I missed that. I'm sorry. I don't think I hurt anybody. And then would the deputy have written him a ticket? And we don't know that. But obviously, when the guy just goes no, and he gets in his car and drives off. And again, keep in mind the distinction between the different departments. So if it was an Orlando cop who pulled over the Orlando cop, there's a good chance I would suspect that the guy'd go, look, just slow down, dude. You're making us look bad. But when it's a sheriff's deputy from the county sheriff who's attempting to pull you over, and he says, let me see your license, and you just jump in your vehicle and take off, that ain't going to end well. It's not going to end well. And by the way, earlier in the video, I said a trigger phrase. I referred to a non-police officer as a civilian. And every time I do that, I get at least one person who says, Steve, civilians are non-military. So unless that officer's in the military, he's a civilian too. And I don't know why people think they can correct others on the language without looking it up first. Because if you look up the word civilian in a dictionary, it'll often say, person is not in the military or not in law enforcement. So if a police officer says, well, this person's a civilian or they're not a civilian, they're probably referring to whether or not that person is a police officer or not. So in this case, the officer pulled over another officer. He wasn't pulling over a civilian in that context. I know some people are going to say, but Steve, I don't agree with that definition. That's fine. That's fine. You're disagreeing with the dictionary, not me. And I got a lot of dictionaries here, my friends, so be careful. But anyways, getting back to the original story here, a police officer was pulled over successfully, but he said, I'm going to work, my man. And when the officer says, let me see your license, he goes, no. Just jumps back in his car and takes off. And it's all caught on camera. Again, this should not be a surprise to the officers that there are cameras recording them because one, they're often wearing a camera, and two, there's a camera running in the car. So there you go. So Greg, thanks for sending it from WFTV.com. Orlando police officer accused of reckless driving and fleeing a traffic stop in a patrol cruiser. And remember, he did stop. He did talk to the officer. And then he's jumped back in and took off. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. Fear closes down our minds and our hearts.